Welcome to the Transformation Perspective. This is episode 10, and today's episode is called Project 2025 Quotes. Yes, this is an issue that has been rising, and it's been in the media, it's been in the debates, it's been in commercials. It is a hot topic going into this election that is a mere 40 days away. We're talking about a variety of different things. We already have talked about the economy and immigration and now Project 2025, and I still want to cover abortion aspects. And we're going to briefly talk about that with some of these quotes today. So let's just dive right into it. And once again, I'm your host of the Transformation Perspective, Harper. All right, quote number one from Project 2025. And I quote from page 559. Project 2025 would resurrect a law from the 1800s called the Comstock Act to ban nationwide and jail healthcare providers. Okay, so let me dive into this. So we definitely need background context of what this is, and then I can give you my perspective of what this does. So, U.S. Congress passed the Comstock Act in 1873, the act of suppression of trade in the circulation of obscene literature and articles of immoral use. That was like the entire name of the act. Um, so, what this does is criminalize the use of any post office of sending any obscene literature, articles of immoral use aspects, as well as any medications that would result in the medical assistance of an abortion. And I'll get you more of that in just a second here. But also, piggyback on that law, in 1909, Congress amended that and added any common carriers. And what that means is like your FedEx, your UPS, heck, even Amazon now. Anything that ships, because obviously back then we just had the post office, anything that ships is now part of that. So just remember that. Please remember any shipping agency, and we do a lot of online shopping in this day's society, and what the Comstock Act could limit across the country. So, what the Comstock let's talk about who was behind this. His name is Anthony Comstock, and he began to work with the YMCA. Yes, the YMCA, the youth aspect of the YMCA, and lobbied for, and where's that lobbying again? Because it's been in our political system for ever, right? Lobbied for the enactment of severe statute which outlawed the transformation of obscene material in the mail. Think about this. This is more of like a very Christian religious aspect, motivations behind this, or I should say, maybe not that, but more of a theological aspect. And that if you go back to my previous beginning episodes of talking about like theology versus the enlightenment aspect and shifting away from the theological idea that everything happens because God wants it to happen and so on and so forth, and more of an enlightenment and scientific aspect behind it. This seems more of what this is, a more theological aspect of the law. And here's my perspective related back to the past to the present. We are back to that theological aspect, getting away from the Enlightenment, getting away from social contract theory and scientific ideas and how that explains things to more a theological explanation behind everything. So back to this whole criminalization of common carriers and the post office. That means here it is. This is just kind of a few paraphrases of what is in that. A sending of obscene, lewd, filthy, vile articles, devices, or substances of any article or any designed, adapted to, intended for producing abortion. Yikes. That's some really, really tough language. If we're going by moral standards, I could go a whole episode on that. Moral standards and what that means, the morality. Um, yeah, but I'm not going to dive deep into that aspect. But think about all just that language right there in itself. So, what that implicates here is receive up to 5 years of imprisonment with hard labor and a fine of $2,000. Remember, this law was written in 1878. Define what hard labor actually is anymore. Yeah, I don't know. You can't really do that in prisons. Well, you could, I guess, because technically we have slavery, but that's a whole other topic too. 13th Amendment, by the way. This could affect other medical care, such as miscarriage management. And we're going to dive into this in another quote that I've got here from this. So think about that. Any medical aspects, but if you look at the ComStack Act, let me kind of circulate around this. If you look at the ComStack Act and how it's interpreted, and this is the dangerous part of letting it go to the Supreme Court or in court systems and letting it play out in courts, because we all know what happened, Roe versus Wade, right? Um, Interpretation of what is the intent of the medication being sent to for illegal abortions is not allowed, but for legal abortions, which would be under this ComStack Act, is for like miscarriages to help that along because they do happen naturally in 10 to 20% of natural pregnancies. Um, so think of all that aspect. Regular medical treatment for a natural occurring miscarriage that does occur in 10 to 20% of all pregnancies and 8 out of 10 pregnancies that happen during the first trimester, which is the first 12 weeks, result in miscarriages. So think about that. 10%. So let's say it's 10. So 10 out of 100. And 8 of those happen within the first trimester. And that means 2 do not, right? Or 20. That means 16 and then 4 do not. So think about those statistics going forward. And you can't get proper treatment because you need medication and you can't get that. Yeah, oh, wait, that's right. That's a violation of your constitutional rights of public health and safety measures, right? Your health is in jeopardy. Your constitutional rights are being violated because of that. So we can piggy back and forth based on the ComStack Act and not allowing this to happen. The act was used to persecute a wide range of violations intent to mail magazines that detailed birth control. Oh my goodness, how scandalous, right? Talking about birth control. But think about that aspect. Women didn't have the right to vote yet in 1873. So controlling of women's reproductive rights was basically on the table back then too. So detailed birth control, mailing of condoms. How dare you? Wait a minute. Hold on. Back this bus up a second, everybody. That means if the ComStack Act goes in, all birth control cannot be mailed. And remember, that means any kind of shipment of that. So does that mean stores cannot carry condoms anymore? Because somehow they had to get shipped there because any common carrier would fall under that category. So no birth control whatsoever. So instead of our modern medicine to prevent unwanted pregnancies, Project 2025 and conservatives want to use the ComStack Act to make sure we constantly have pregnancies that people maybe don't want, but we can prevent them, as well as sexually transmitted diseases that condoms do help prevent. Wow, what a mess we're getting into. I'm not even done with the ComStack Act. If you're watching on TikTok, check out the rest of the episode on my YouTube channel for transformation perspective. So continue on this. Also, the shipment of medical textbooks is also one of those aspects too. Um, that wouldn't look at the modern medicine that we now have compared to 1873. Big difference. Big difference. Also, medical textbooks that I should finish that. Medical textbooks with illustrations of human anatomy. How dare we learn about our bodies and how they function? So we have so many medical advancements that we can treat these. Basically, what the Product 2025 is trying to implement is, you know, let's get rid of modern medicine 100%. Because why have that? Why should we not die of syphilis? Why should we not die from a rusted nail? You know, I don't know. We have modern medicine. Why? Let's die back in our 30s again. Because this is how absurd this sounds. And yeah, maybe you're watching, you're like, "Duh, Harper, that's really absurd." No, I'm gonna fight absurd with absurd here on the logic and my perspective. That's the aspect. Continuing on this of the violations of not being sent, even the mailing of letters discussing dating. Dating. Dating among unmarried people. Oh, the sin, the audacity. How dare non-married people enter into courtship and start dating? My God, what is this? The 1700s now? Okay, we have a lot of dating apps. Okay, a lot of people use dating apps to find a partner, hookups, whatever it might be. Does the Comstock Act also follow under the regulation of the internet and social media apps for dating then too? And that would mean those cannot happen? Or you can't post on Facebook who you're in a relationship because that would be discussing dating aspects. You shouldn't be able to post anything. Does that constitute also of sending messages? Because technically that is through a different carrier. Um, that we can't talk about our dates that we had because that's forbidden too. Yeah, I'm just saying, you go down this slope, how much does it violate your First Amendment now of freedom of speech, everybody? I'm not done with the Comstock Act yet. So in 1930, the federal court ruled that sex education material did not inherently violate the Comstock Act. Oh, thank God for that, right? Well, at least we can have sex ed continuing. Maybe we can have safe sex. Oh, sorry. No, we can't have safe sex because remember, if the Comstock Act really does get enforced from Project 2025, then we can't be distributing condoms anymore to have safe sex. Yeah. Supreme Court ruling of Griswold versus Connecticut in 1965 removed the reference of contraceptive from the Comstock laws in 1971. So this is a good thing, right? Obviously, birth control is a very new concept that's on the marketplace. So we have a Supreme Court ruling, right? You can't, oh, we got to distribute. No, you can't do that. Yeah. However, if conservatives are really going after contraceptives, what it sure seems like under the Comstock Act, who says the Supreme Court won't take up this case, just like everything else they've done, right? And overrule it because there's no precedence. And I go back to my original stance is this is why we need to amend the Constitution every generation or rewrite the Constitution every so generation or so, right? Because the Constitution is not up to modern times with what we do and medical science. Okay, they didn't have the medical terminology or the medical ideas back in 1789 that we do now. We need to update it. If you're Supreme Court justice who is interpreting as a realist and or an idealist or whatever that is what the Constitution actually is, then we definitely need to update it. But it's extremely hard to pass amendments. In 1996, Congress added the ComSec law sending obscene materials through the internet. So, like any kind of pornographic aspects through the internet. So, I guess that's a good thing, right? That one's a good thing. But yeah, that's a lot. Kind of gave you some more perspective on what that would entail. A lot of things could be shifted. And like I said, if you take this court case up to the Supreme Court and they've interpreted based on, well, the context of 1873 instead of modern context, we could go down that slippery slope of, oh, does social media count for common carriers? Do like just shipment semis count as common carriers that are distributing condoms in the stores that you can sell? It's a slippery slope. Let's move on to the second quote here. So, from page 557, abortion pills pose the single greatest threat to unborn children in the post-Roe world. ... Continuing here. The FDA should reverse its approval of chemical abortion drugs. Yeah, I read it a little dramatically. Okay, so the Heritage Foundation, who wrote this, right, believes that abortion pills are the most threatening thing to an unborn child. No, not even close, because you have natural variables that take place. Apparently, none of these people are like parents. No, a single person who's had a high risk pregnancy. So that is the actual number one threat to an unborn child. It's not the abortion pills, it's just high risk pregnancies. So let me go through some high risk things to educate you on this. Existing health conditions existing health conditions. This is not just a short list, it's a long list, but here's just some of them. High blood pressure, diabetes, kidney disease, autoimmune disease, thyroid disease, and obesity, just for some of them. And let me put my 2 cents in for abuse. Jeez, I can't speak tonight. Obesity. Obesity is a issue. Yes. Can it be genetic? Sure. Is it lifestyle? Yes, it is. Have we done the obesity thing to ourselves? 100% based on the regulations of we have to have high fructose corn syrup in everything. We need artificial sugars in everything. We pack sugar in everything. And we are dependent on that. We are dependent on processed foods because they are cheaper instead of fresh produce. So what happens is our bodies cannot process those natural things because they're now unnatural that are in our bodies. Okay. And it starts to store it as fat. And that's where our weight problems start to accumulate. All right. So this great agricultural revolution, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing. We were mass producing a ton of food during the 1950s. But then we get to the point where I was like, let's just add sugar to everything. And this is where we have the problem. So if they want to say that abortion pills are the thing that's going to be the most threatening, well, then you have to look back at the other problem and say, well, then how are you going to solve the high risk aspect of diabetes, which can be result from obesity, which is result from all the high sugar aspects that we have in our food that we keep doing because we keep subsidizing these companies and their lobbyists for the government. Take care of that problem first before you work at this treatment of abortion pills being the number one threat. The second aspect of high pregnancy risks is the mother's age. Teens are at high risk, as well as first-time mothers age 35 and older. Uh, Women are having children at a much later age than they were generations ago. So it does increase the risk for higher pregnancies. So that's another big one. Lifestyle. I think I just talked about with this diabetes aspect. Lifestyle plays a factor. If you don't have the funds to buy fresh foods at the store, produce, what happens is your body does not process the processed stuff that's in there. Your potato chips are cheaper than a bag of apples or oranges or grapes. Why? All right. It doesn't fill you up. Those are simple carbs. I can go on a nutritious standpoint. And this is the vicious cycle that takes place. We need fiber to fill you up, to make you feel healthy. And we don't have that, right? They're unaffordable for some people. So lifestyle choices is a big thing that's threatening an unborn child. On top of that, alcohol use. Okay. Yeah, doctor always says don't drink alcohol while you're pregnant. Okay. You can't stop someone from doing that. Okay. But it also can contribute to prior heavy use of alcohol. Tobacco use. Once again, all right, we have strong regulations on that, but you can't stop someone from smoking. Or if they smoke prior to getting pregnant and they've stopped and then they go back to smoking after they have a baby, you can't stop that, right? Those are life choices. And I can go on a tangent about that aspect of smoking in low impoverished areas of potentially that it's just that's the only thing they control in their life is they can go buy cigarettes and smoke them and they can control that moment. Lifestyle choice, right? Or drug use. Either drug use and you get pregnant or prior drug use can contribute to that, right? As well as eating habits contribute. So if we can't promote healthy eating and have dietary aspects in this country that have our fresh produce to make sure everyone's healthy, right, as a cheaper aspect than processed things, then there's a problem right there. That is an existential threat to unborn children. Another high risk aspect is health issues before and during pregnancy. This could be previous preterm births, so like miscarriages, multiple gestations, so twins, triplets, and so on, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, and the list goes on. Right? These are all high risk pregnancies. That is the greatest threat to unborn children. It's not the abortion pill. Even if you want the child, I'm not even considering an abortion. Look at the variables that go into a pregnancy. Pregnancy is a risky, risky thing. All right. There's so many variables that contribute to that have to go right, and it could easily go wrong. Don't target one thing because that's not what the fundamental issue is. If you want to make sure people can have healthy births, and like I've said in previous episodes, it's not pro-life or pro-choice. It should be pro-birth. And right now, conservatives and the pro-life movement isn't anything for pro-birth. What are you going to do for families after the child's born? Not our problem no more. That's where I propose things need to be changed. Quote number 3 from Project 2025 from page 455. Project 25 would use every available tool, including cutting the funds to force states to report miscarriages and exactly how many abortions take place within its borders, including the reason for every abortion. All right, let's break this one down for a second. Like I mentioned earlier in this video, 10 to 20% of natural pregnancies, I guess there is no other thing but pregnancies. Okay, so 10 to 20% of pregnancies um, and naturally in a miscarriage. All right. I'm sure maybe someone out there, somebody that has had a miscarriage in their life. I know several, and it's extremely, extremely difficult for that person. Okay. So, one, you want to track that? Why do you even care? Why do you want to meddle in anybody's life when that is personal trauma that is taking place? How long that individual was trying to get pregnant, whether it's the first child or second or fifth child, and it ends in a miscarriage. It is heart wrenching. It is devastating. I'm very grateful that has never happened, that I've had to go through that aspect being a parent myself. But I've known plenty of individuals that have had miscarriages, and it lasts forever with you. But then you want to be constantly reminded that, you had a miscarriage. Why did you have a miscarriage? What were you up to? Why did you do that? Do you really want to get the fifth degree on that one? Natural things can happen. Like I mentioned in quote number 2, high risk pregnancies. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in a pregnancy because it's a risky thing. Here's a science aspect for you. If you understand symbiotic relationships, right? A host and a parasite. Technically, by definition, a baby is a parasite because they are feeding off the host. Yes, they are trying to survive, right? But also, the host is also trying to get rid of the parasite somehow. Then there's other stuff in there that doesn't allow that to happen. But then this is where miscarriages can potentially happen. That I'm not going to get into. I'm not a doctor. I just teach biology. Okay. So there's factors that involve in that, but you want to count every miscarriage? Absolutely not. That is definitely fringing upon individuals' rights of privacy, and I'm pretty sure that's a HIPAA violation. Continuing on with this one, if you look at what they're saying, that reporting miscarriages and exactly how many abortions take place. Okay. This is going to be a lot to take in here. Miscarriage is an abortion by definition. And the states that have passed strict abortion laws, you can look at this and some of the laws, look at the fine details of these laws, that a natural occurring abortion counts as a miscarriage and the patient cannot be treated unless the mother's life is threatening. You know when the life of the mother is threatening? Basically on her deathbed. Because we have to use the intent of what life and threatening is. Why? Why should we go down that route if we have modern medicine to prevent that from happening? We have to use these biased interpretations of intent of like mother's life. Literally on her deathbed is when you decide, oh yeah, it's legal now to treat that natural occurring miscarriage to remove that fetus. No, absolutely no. It's absurd to think these aspects that you put a woman's life in jeopardy because you're concerned that, you know what, the fetus is dead. She's having a miscarriage, but she can't get rid of it naturally. So you need to have an abortion. Like, well, we can't do that. We literally can't go in because of the law. Otherwise, we're going to jail. And maybe we criminalize the woman now too for having a miscarriage, and you got to go to jail. So unless your life is like basically on deathbed, you just have to suffer, and they do. And then guess what happens? You are affecting their reproductive capabilities later on in life. So now you've infringed upon their public health once again, violated their constitutional amendments of public health and safety. If safety falls in the category of keeping individuals safe, definitely not doing that. So, Heritage Foundation, Pride of 2025, conservatives, think about the Constitution. You want to protect the constitutional rights of individuals? Then you better look at what violates the Constitution. And anything that falls in the category of public health and safety measures is a violation of constitutional rights. And this would fall under that category. Last quote, page 584. The president should direct agencies to rescind, means get rid of, regulations interpreting sex discrimination provisions as prohibiting discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, transgender status, sex characteristics, and etc. List goes on. Okay, let me put this disclaimer out there. Everybody wants labels. Everyone wants have people identify with something. Are you Republican? Are you Democrat? Are you this? Are you that? If you have been watching my videos and people have been making comments, yes, I'm trans and I'm proud of it. So when you're saying you're going to rescind these aspects, right? Think about how many people that affects. And I'm going to go into this right now here. So these aspects of sex discrimination in the workplace are protected under Title VII, which was passed under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. The agency they would go after to rescind that is known as the Equal Employment Opportunity Commissioner, otherwise known as the EEOC. So if you've never gone through any legal aspects of Title VII, I have, and it's not fun. It really isn't. Being sexually harassed is not fun, and this falls under that category. So the EEOC also prohibits sexual harassment at the workplace. But under Title VII prohibits the employer from treating you differently or less favorably because of your sex. That means male, female, and intersex. Yes, intersex is the spectrum of sex. It is not just XX, XY. There is a sex linked disorder. I should not sex linked, my bad. Sex disorder that is in there that you could have triple X, single X, XXY, and a list of possibilities go on, creating over 30 different types of sexes out there because intersex falls under that. And yes, what is the percentage? I think over 1% of the world's population is intersex. It is that right there. Okay. So yeah, anybody. All right. Also, which is defined to include pregnancy. Oh, wait, that's right. The Comstat Act, right? So everyone has to be pregnant. And so now you're going to get discriminated because now we're not going to enforce this. So now we don't want women in the workforce either because we can't have the EEOC enforcing that. So that means pregnant women can be denied jobs too, so they can just stay at home. Yep. Let's go back to, 100 years ago, basically. Sexual orientation. Ooh, this is a good one, right? You think it's just homosexuals, right? Wrong. Sexual orientation also is classified as heterosexuals, homosexuals, pansexuals, asexuals, any kind of aspect of your orientation. You're like, wait a minute, no, you couldn't go after heterosexual because a man and a woman should be the ones who are getting married and having kids. Yeah, but if you want to go down this rabbit hole, If you seriously want to go down this rabbit hole, then any company could deny someone who is heterosexual a job just as much as they could deny someone who is classified as homosexual. If that's the route you want to go down, be careful what you ask for because karma's a you know what. Gender identity. Oh, this is another good one. Because if you identify as a cis male, if the EEOC is not regulating Title VII, enforcing these aspects, then if you're a cis male or a cis woman, then you could easily be denied a job too. Just like me being transgender. Think about that. Maybe we don't think about the actions taking place because you think, oh, well, no. Yeah, cis men, cis women, they should all have jobs. Heterosexuals should have jobs. No. If you're really going to do it, that means it applies to all, not a select few. So keep that in mind when you start passing laws. Also, Title VII prohibits discrimination based on sex. Once again, falls under XX, XY, and every spectrum of intersex out there. Race. That's a large spectrum. Okay. So think about that avenue as well. Not protected again. Color. Yeah, this one's going to blow your mind too. Color is on the basis of a spectrum for pigmentation, of a brown spectrum. Okay, if you've taken biology and your biology teachers talked about pigmentation, colorization of your skin, it falls on genetics on the color spectrum of brown, with albinoism as a genetic basically disorder, right? A very, very rare one. So based on your color, that means if you fall on any aspect of the spectrum of brown, right, that means yes, included what we considered white, which that doesn't actually exist because it's not a albinism, then you could be denied a job too. Remember, you want to go down this slippery slope? Be careful what you wish for. Religion. Oh, darn it. Another big one here, right? So when you think about this aspect, because the Heritage Foundation wanting to bring back a Christian-based society. Sorry, my hair is like falling off. Excuse me for that one. But that would include Christians under that. That would include Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, Shinto, Tao, whatever. Right? It doesn't exclude anybody. Right? It shouldn't then. It's not, oh, well, I get a scapegoat because we're the Christian Foundation who's trying to get Christianity beliefs back out there. I don't care if you're Christian. I don't care if you're the Catholic spectrum, Protestant, Muslim. I don't care. As long as you're a good, decent human being and you are kind to others, that's all that matters. So if you don't have the EEOC enforcing these regulations, yes, companies could say, you know what? You're Christian or you're Muslim or you're Hindu. You're not getting this job. National origin as well. It could be denied too from a job. Title VII applies to labor unions, private employers, employment agencies. It also prohibits discrimination in recruitment, hiring, wages, assignments, and promotions. That all goes by because you want to take away the EEOC to enforce these laws. What's going to happen to our employment line? What's going to happen to people getting jobs? What's going to happen to our economy? Apparently, these individuals who wrote this and want to implement this haven't really thought of the economic implications of repealing this stuff or not forcing these regulations into place and what it does for employment. If you're not going to hire a massive amount of population because they're part of the LGBTQIA community, well, that's a bummer. You ain't going to make any money in your company. Then we don't have the tax dollars flowing in. The government doesn't have the money to keep it up and running. And it's just a snowball effect. Yeah, this is why you really need to listen to your history teachers, right? Also, Title VII is prohibiting aspects of hiring, protecting hiring, wages, assignments, promotions, benefits, discipline, discharge, layoffs, and every aspect of any kind of employment that you've got. That's what it's protecting. But if you look at the quote, once again, rescind regulations interpreting sex discrimination. Be careful the slope you go down, because if you're doing that, if you're a cis individual, male, female, whatever, you're not protected anymore. Nothing is protected. We basically go back in time. Why are we trying to go back in history? If you really want to do that, go find a DeLorean, build your time machine like Back to the Future, and live in the past. If you really want to do this, figure out how to make a time machine and just go live in the past. Because we had all this stuff in the past. Right? We are a diverse species. And that's what keeps the survival of the human race. Not limiting who you can marry, who you can have children with, because without diversity, the human race will go extinct if you believe in science. But if we want to go down the theology route again and saying it has to be this way because God said so, then human race is doomed. I don't want to be doom and gloom, but that's science for you. That is the importance of understanding the Enlightenment movement and the scientific revolution that has come out of that. So we've gone full circle. And yes, people will argue, oh, Product 2025 is fear-mongering. But isn't the other side doing the same thing? We're both doing it. Both sides are doing it. It's all about education. And this is what I've been trying to do on my video cast of the transformation perspective. Yes, I might sound biased at times, but I am trying to do the research for you to educate you, America, or anyone else that's watching in the world about what some of these policies are, what are some of the issues that are out there, because they are important and they do matter. So make sure you get out and vote, because that is so critical. Some states have early voting already, so please get out and vote. Get your absentee ballots. Yes, they are legal. Okay, we've been doing absentee ballots for a long time. Just because Trump lost the election and says it's rigged and it's unconstitutional and it's not right, no, we've been doing mail-in ballots for a long, long time. Get your absentee ballots, get them in, get your early voting in. Don't wait for the last minute. All right. It's so important. Exercise your right to vote. I made 14 shorts on YouTube to tell you some reasons why you should get out and vote this election year. You have that right. You still have that right, maybe I should say. Get out and vote. Thanks for watching The Transformation Perspective. This is episode 10, Product 2025 quotes. Share it, like it, subscribe. And thank you, everyone who has subscribed and who has viewed it so far. We'll see you next week. Thanks. Bye.